When we were growing up, we all had the evils of peer pressure drilled into our minds. We were all warned of the coercion of friends we hung out with. But what is peer pressure really? And how do we navigate through the complex demands of social interactions? To help us answer these questions, I talked to one Elishibah Msengeti.
Awesome. So my name is Elishibah Msengeti Koriot. I am an educator. I'm a leadership facilitator and a life skills trainer. I run an organization called The Classroom Outside, which is an organization that trains people on life skills and leadership, as well as mentorship. And the whole idea of The Classroom Outside is to empower people and equip people with the skills and the tools to be able to live a life of purpose, to live fully, to live a life of joy, and to even know which resources to reach out to in the event that they need any kind of assistance in their different seasons and journeys of life. I'm also a wife and a mother, and I'm a Christian, and trying to do my best, to serve society and to give back.
It's a privilege to have you on Young and Exceptional. I believe that you were once a young person and you had an experience with peer pressure, or maybe someone talked to you about peer pressure. So I believe you're the best person to speak to us about this issue today. And maybe to start us up, you can tell us, what is peer pressure?
Okay. Peer pressure is basically the pressure. I'm using the same word, but it's basically social pressure by one's peer group to take a certain action or to conform to a certain behavior. Often it will be pressure to either adopt somebody's beliefs or behavior, and the reason it's called peer pressure is because it's pressure that is coming from people that are either from your age group or people that are peers in the sense that maybe they're colleagues, or you're in school together, and hence the name peer pressure. So in a nutshell, that's what peer pressure is. What I would say though is that a lot of times when people hear the word peer pressure, we think of it as negative, but there's also positive peer pressure. So you could be pressured in a good way by others, by your peers, to maybe study harder, work harder, to even behave better. So peer pressure is not always negative. There is such a thing as positive peer pressure, but a lot of times, and I'm sure what we will probably talk more about today, is the negative peer pressure.
Wow, I've heard you mention about positive peer pressure. Please tell us about it.
I think it's essentially, the idea that you can have peers who influence you in a good way. So, for example, maybe a great example is you are in school and yourself, maybe you're not very focused. Remember, we have different personalities, and then you see your friends working very hard. Maybe they wake up early, maybe they're not engaging in time-wasting activities. And you also start to ask yourself, by the way, why am I the only one not doing that? And because it's people you maybe like or admire, you start to behave like them. It could also be that you can have role models that are actually your peers. A lot of times, again, we think that role models have to be older than us, but you can have role models who are actually your peers. So you're seeing the way that someone is living their life. They seem to be focused, they seem to have great values, and you desire the same thing, and then you start to also borrow from them, borrow from what they do, and even in some cases you can not imitate but emulate, right? So that is positive peer pressure. And I would say the best kinds of friendships are the friendships that exert positive peer pressure on yourself and on each other. Sometimes it could also be that you've gone through some experiences that have maybe made you forget who you are, made you forget your value, your worth. We go through things that sometimes really shake us, even shake our faith. And if you have a group of friends who are really strong in their either in their faith or in their positive outlook of life, they can exert positive pressure on you. So those are just examples of positive peer pressure, and I would say that it's something we should actually look for.
Yeah.
Look for positive peer pressure, right? The tricky thing is that the line is very thin, because again, sometimes you can say, I am getting inspired by so and so, and I want so much to be like them in a positive way, but you're willing to do even negative things to be able to get to where they are or to do what they're doing. In that sense, it has stopped being positive peer pressure. So it should also not be that something that is forcing you to maybe compromise on your own values. Then that has stopped being positive peer pressure, because the end doesn't justify the means. Understand? The end could be that, yes, I want to be successful like so and so, I want to be liked like so and so, I want to be popular, I want to be as happy as they seem to be, but how am I getting there, right? What am I letting go of? What am I sacrificing to be able to get to where they are?
And why do you think that we only focus on the negative peer pressure and we don't focus on the positive side?
Yeah, because you see, the negative peer pressure is stronger. It tends to be stronger. It is also more difficult to deal with. I mean, positive peer pressure is not so difficult. And even within the negative peer pressure, there's different kinds, right? So there's the spoken peer pressure, where I am telling you, let's go and drink, let's go out, let's start smoking, that's spoken peer pressure, and it's very could be very direct. But there's also unspoken, where I'm not necessarily saying anything to you, but by actions, I'm suggesting to you that if you don't do this, you will not belong to our group, you will not belong to our circle. So sometimes you find yourself being excluded from activities, maybe. And it's probably because one day you said you maybe are not a fan of, I don't know, going clubbing or whatever example I can give, right? So no one is telling you that it's bad, but the fact that the next time people make plans, you're being excluded, there'll be an unspoken pressure there, an unspoken peer pressure. So there's that, and then there's direct and indirect, right? So direct, again, is the same kind of like I'm saying to you, me as your friend, we as your friends, as your circle, as your peers, are saying you need to do this. We're coming to you directly. Indirect sometimes is like what we see with social media. No one is telling you that this is what you need to be doing, but it is you're seeing it yourself and telling yourself, everybody is dressing this way, everybody is living this kind of life, and it is indirect in that no one is actually directly pressuring you, but you are feeling the pressure. And it's so important for us to be aware, especially as young people. It's so important for us to be aware of both the direct and indirect peer pressure, because the indirect one is very dangerous, because you find yourself doing things that you have no clue, like why, what is actually guiding me to start living this kind of life. But in reality, it is because there is some pressure somewhere. There's a certain standard that somebody has set, and in an unspoken way, that is leading you to believe that this is the way to live. You see people on TV, you see the people on social media and what they are posting. We read about people in the papers, and what you don't realize sometimes is what you're seeing is just a snippet of their life. You're not seeing the whole life. So you've given yourself pressure that is actually unnecessary. And this person was not actually trying to pressure you at all. Yeah.
There are myths about peer pressure. And I've just heard you talk about one of them, which is we believe that it's only the young people that are affected by peer pressure. Please talk about that.
Yeah. So that's, I think, one of the myths about the myths surrounding peer pressure. Okay, one, we've already talked about that peer pressure is always negative, and we've said that peer pressure can be positive. The other myth or belief is that it only affects teenagers or teens. In reality, throughout our life, we go through peer pressure. I'm telling you, even at the age of I don't know, 50, 60, for example, you find that parents are now starting to feel, all so and so's children have gotten married, so and so's children have gotten children, so and so's children now are working, they've moved out, my children should also be doing the same thing. There's a peer pressure there. That is peer pressure, right? And even when you retire, again, it's the same thing. You find yourself, you had planned, maybe you've built your plots or houses somewhere and people are renting out and you are quite happy with that. Suddenly your friends are telling you they are doing quails business. You find yourself starting to move towards quails. Peer pressure. And then even as children, even before they are teenagers, there is a certain level of peer pressure. I see my children, where we live, some kids have skates and the children come and say, Mommy, Mom, so and so everyone has skates, we have to have skates. It's peer pressure, and we have to train them from a very young age, and we're trying to do that, myself and my husband, to train them that it is okay for someone to have something that you don't have. We don't all have to be the same. The training starts from that level. The training starts from knowing that we can be different. We don't all have to be the same. We don't have to have the same things. Because I will buy you skates because I want you to enjoy skating, not because all the children in the estate have skates. Trying to differentiate it that way.
Wow. And to shift the conversation a little bit, what role do parents have to play on their kids on this issue about peer pressure?
So I think there are many angles to it. The first, I'll say, is the example I've just given, where as parents we have a role to train and equip our children to be able to deal with peer pressure from the youngest age. This competing with the Joneses, that wamepika chapati na si lazima tupike chapati. You have to curb that from a very young age. So there's that role in terms of parents teaching their children that it is okay to be different, it is okay to be unique, and you should be comfortable in that. But the second thing, which is very interesting, is what I've just said, where as a parent, because I am feeling pressured by my peers, I exert the pressure on my children. So if my friends, now we're at the age where my friends, maybe we all have young children who are in primary school or kindergarten. So because my friend maybe said her kids, I don't know, are now going mountain climbing, I don't know, or camping or whatever. Now as Elishibah, I want my children also have to do the same. But my children maybe are not interested in camping or mountain climbing. So you're putting pressure on your children. It happens, and it's so bad to a point where you even find parents forcing children to follow a certain career path, because I need my peers to respect me. So my as a parent, I want my peers to respect me. So I'm going to put the pressure on you as my son, my daughter, to take a certain course, to choose a certain career, which is not for you, but it's more for me to be able to align with my peers. So I think that those angles, and it's very good for us to recognize that, and for us to ask ourselves, as parents, whatever actions I'm maybe suggesting to my children, or even exemplifying to my children, are they the right ones for them as individuals? What am I teaching them about individuality? What am I teaching them about standing your ground? I cannot be saying that you should always stand your ground, but the next time my friends are suggesting we do something, also bendera ufata upepo. Children do what they see, not what you say. They do what you do. So I think there's a big responsibility there for parents, and not just parents, but anybody who is in a position of authority, who who is in a position to influence, a generation below them, there is a certain responsibility to help people to deal to help the generation to deal with peer pressure. Let me add one more. If you haven't, what's the word I want to use? If you haven't instilled a sense of self-worth in your child, whereby your home and your family is a place of love, is a place of acceptance, it's a place of belonging, I can assure you that child, that person, is going to look for love, acceptance, and belonging outside. They are more likely to succumb to peer pressure because they are looking for, there's a gap that hasn't been filled at home, that hasn't been filled by the parent or the guardian, because it could also be a guardian where maybe the parents are not there. So you're finding that a lot of young people sometimes are actually following trends and maybe behaviors that are in an attempt to fill a certain void that they've not even realized exists. Yeah. So there's also a very big role that family plays. And even for myself, I'm a firstborn and I have two brothers, I also have a role to ensure that, and myself and my brothers, and they have the same role towards me, to also ensure that there's a certain level of love and acceptance in our family. That is so that I'm not being pushed to go and look for it outside. You could still love somebody and do all that as a parent, and they still succumb, as your child still falls prey to peer pressure. It could still happen, but I'd say at least we should do our very best.
So you're trying to say that there needs to be openness between the kids and the parents.
There needs to be openness. There needs to be openness, and there needs, you see, also, and this is one of the one of the things that we talk about when you're parenting with the wounds yourself that you haven't dealt with. You start to transfer those wounds to your child. So if you yourself also maybe are not self-confident about who you are, where you are, you transfer that insecurity to your children.
And especially for the firstborns.
For the firstborns, for the middle children, because middle children also say there's a middle child syndrome where they feel like they're never as special as the first child or the last child, right? There's that pressure, and I think that the openness and the talking is very important, so that I can also tell you as a parent, when you come to me as a child and you're feeling inadequate, you're feeling you haven't been accepted, I can reaffirm you, I can reassure you that maybe even myself when I was your age, I went through the same thing. So you don't have to fall through the same pitfalls that I fell through as a child, but as a young person. But if we don't have a relationship, then you don't even have a chance to know what my youth was like. Do you know that so many young people have a certain impression of their parents that might not be based on reality because there is no relationship? Yeah. As a young person, if you're watching this, when is the last time you sat and spoke with your mom or your dad about their teens? How are their teenage years? When is the last time you asked them about their 20s? When is the last time you asked them what was their experience like when they first went to college? If they went to college, what was their first job like? What were their pressures? What did they do the first time they earned money? They got money, whether it was from a business or from a job. What is the first thing they bought? Those things will help you to understand your parent more and to realize that some of the things you are going through now are not so unique. I remember when I finished Form 4, I was doing computer studies at a certain college here in Nairobi, and I had come from a very strict Catholic school where class time is class time. and I wasn't about to like skive classes, or if we begin an assignment, I take it very seriously because that's the culture I had come from. And I was feeling very uncool because I found that this was not the culture at this particular college. And later I came to realize that it's not even just about that college, but it's something that we had normalized as Kenyans, that you just unatokea tu shule when you want, especially for college. A lot of people, you skip classes and your parents are struggling to pay that fees. And I remember talking about it with my mom, and just telling her like how I was feeling, that I'm very uncool and maybe I'm going to really stick out, from the crowd. And my mom told me, she told me that even she herself, when she went to college, because she's not a firstborn, she's a secondborn, but she's the first girl. When she went to college, she was a very serious student because she had all these younger ones looking up to her. Okay, so I also, it removed that pressure from me of feeling like I'm going to stand out and I'm the uncool one. If my mom went through the same pressures at my age at that time, because then I was maybe 18, I just finished high school. There's a way that the stories that we hear from our parents can encourage us and can also actually strengthen us. Yeah, not just our parents, our aunties and uncles as well, our guardians, the people who are in the generation above us. Yeah.
So, Elishibah, there's a guy out there saying that mom is not there for me, daddy is not there for me. They're always busy in their activities, they're out there in their jobs. So, whom do I talk to? How do I even express myself?
Okay, so I guess I would have to address the answer to this person and not to the parents. But